For young children and their parents, ear infections may seem unavoidable. In fact, it seems fairly common amongst babies and most kids to experience at least one in the early years. And this week, Your Community Health, WENY's Renata Steele speaks with a pediatrician about the steps you can take to prevent or treat one.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Your Community Health. I am speaking with Arnott Health pediatrician Dr. Jeffrey Gardner. Dr. Gardner, we are talking about probably one of the most common kind of childhood issues. I don't know if illness is necessarily the right word for it, but I certainly went through this with my son over a period of time when he was younger, and we're talking about ear infections. So tell me a little bit about what exactly is an ear infection.
Well, the most common ear infection that you and I would think about in very young children is what we call in the medical profession otitis media, which means the middle ear. Here we're talking about infection of the space of the ear, which is supposed to be an air-filled cavity that helps to transmit sound from the eardrum to the inner ear. It is the most common reason for sick visits to the doctor for children under age 5 in this country.
Okay, and now what causes a child to get an ear infection in the first place?
What you have is the middle ear is an air-filled cavity. It is connected to the back of the nose and throat with a tube called the eustachian tube. In small children, the eustachian tube doesn't work real well. So the typical scenario that we see is a child develops a viral upper respiratory infection, a cold. They have a cold for a few days, they've got a runny nose, they've got a cough. So fluid begins to enter the middle ear cavity, and the middle ear cavity will fill up with fluid. And this fluid is dark and it's warm, and bacteria love to grow there.
All right, and now what are some of the symptoms if you have a child that you think, okay, maybe there's something going on here with the ears?
If your child has had a cold for a few days and your 4-year-old then walks up to you and says, "Mommy, my ear hurts," well, your child very likely has an ear infection. Diagnosis must be confirmed by a doctor. And the way you make the diagnosis is by direct visualization of the eardrum with a device called an otoscope.
Okay, and now what are some of the treatment options for ear infections?
Typically the first line treatment for a definitive middle ear infection is antibiotic therapy. There are many cases nowadays where if the child is not terribly ill, we have an option of watchful waiting. We can wait and see if the child's own immune system will tackle the infection on its own without the use of antibiotics.
Sure. And now, is there anything that a parent can do to help prevent ear infections?
Most of this tends to be common sense. It's infection prevention. Good hand washing to prevent the spread of illness, keeping your child away from other ill individuals and ill people. The other thing that certainly that people can do is do not smoke around your child. Multiple studies have shown that children in households where there are smokers will have a higher incidence of ear infection.
All right, well, Dr. Gardner, thank you so much for your expertise on ear infections, and we want to thank you for joining us for this week's Your Community Health, and we're going to have much more information for you along with additional links on our website, WENY.com. Thanks for joining us.